They told her to sit down, to smile, to be grateful, to stay quiet. But Oprah Winfrey was born with a voice too loud for silence, too deep for small talk, too powerful for permission. And every time they tried to shut her down, she rose, not with rage, but with truth. Not with vengeance, but with vision. Because some women don't break, they broadcast. She wasn't supposed to make it. Not from where she came from. Not with the skin she wore. Not with the pain she carried. Born in Mississippi, raised in poverty, molested at 9, pregnant at 14, buried her child before she could bury her past. That's not a resume, that's a graveyard. And yet, she didn't die there. She spoke, she stood, she showed up. They gave her a microphone, she turned it into a megaphone. They gave her a talk show, she turned it into a movement. They gave her a time slot, she turned it into a throne. But before the empire, there was the exile. She was fired from her first job, told she was unfit for television, too emotional, too raw, too black. Too much, and that's when she learned. The world doesn't fear your weakness. It fears your power, so they'll call it unprofessional, unpolished, unworthy. But what they really mean is uncontrollable. She didn't fight back with fists. She fought back with presence, with grace, with a gaze that saw through the masks, with questions that pierced the soul. She didn't just interview people. She excavated them. She didn't just host. She healed. And that's what scared them most, because silence is safe. But truth? Truth is dangerous. Truth is disruptive. Truth is the one thing you can't cancel. So they tried to box her in, make her palatable, marketable, manageable. But Oprah was never a product. She was a force. And forces don't fit in boxes. They break them. She built her show on stories no one wanted to hear. Rape survivors, addicts, broken families, people who had been discarded, dismissed, destroyed. She gave them a stage. She gave them a name. She gave them back their humanity. And in doing so, she reclaimed her own. Because every time she held space for someone else's pain, she rewrote her own. Every time she said, "Tell me what happened," she was really saying, "I survived too." They tried to silence her, but she turned the silence into signal, into frequency, into a wave that carried millions. And when the ratings soared, they didn't know what to do. Because she wasn't supposed to win. Not like that. Not with truth, not with tears, not with empathy. But she did. And she kept winning. Not just in numbers, in impact, in legacy, in lives changed. Because Oprah didn't just speak, she listened. And in a world that screams, listening is revolutionary. They called her too soft, then too aggressive, then too rich, then too political. Because when a woman refuses to shrink, the world will keep shifting the goalposts. And Oprah didn't play their game. She built her own field, but it wasn't clean, it wasn't easy, it wasn't safe. Behind the scenes, they tried to sabotage her. Executives who smiled on camera but whispered behind closed doors. Networks that wanted her ratings but not her truth. Sponsors who pulled out when she spoke about race, trauma, or justice. And critics who said she was just a talk show host. As if healing millions was a hobby. She was accused of being manipulative, of exploiting pain, of turning suffering into spectacle. But they missed the point. She wasn't selling trauma, she was confronting it. And confrontation makes cowards uncomfortable. She brought Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, not for clout, but for clarity. She asked questions no one else dared to ask. She cried on camera, She prayed on camera. She broke the fourth wall and said, "I see you." And millions saw themselves in her. But the higher she rose, the louder the backlash. They mocked her weight, her voice, her spirituality, her choices, because when you can't kill the message, you attack the messenger. She was told to stay out of politics, to avoid controversy, to stick to entertainment, but Oprah never stuck. She soared. She endorsed a presidential candidate. She built schools in South Africa. She launched OWN, her own network. And every time she expanded, they said she was overreaching. But what they really meant was she's reaching places we can't control. She didn't just break ceilings. She built ladders for black girls, for survivors, for dreamers, for anyone who'd ever been told you're too much. And still, she carried the loneliness, the isolation of being the first, the weight of being the symbol, the pressure of being the hope, because when you become the light, you also become the target. She had moments of doubt, of exhaustion, of wondering if it was worth it. But then she'd remember. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every voice that had been silenced, every story that had been buried, every truth that had been denied. And so she kept going, not because she was fearless, but because she was faithful to the mission, to the message, to the millions who needed her to keep speaking. She didn't ask for the crown, she earned it, not with bloodline, but with backbone, not with inheritance, but with impact. Oprah Winfrey became more than a name. She became a mirror, a movement, a myth. And myths don't retire, they evolve. She built Harpo Studios. She launched OWN. She created a platform where stories weren't filtered. They were freed. She didn't just produce content. She produced courage. And then came the moment. The speech. The Golden Globes. She stood on that stage, wrapped in black, eyes blazing, voice steady, and she said, "For too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men." The room froze, the world leaned in, and silence shattered. It wasn't just a speech, it was a reckoning, a rallying cry, a reminder that power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears scars, sometimes it wears grace, sometimes it wears the face of a woman who refused to be erased. She didn't name names, she didn't throw punches, she didn't need to, because truth doesn't need theatrics, it just needs a voice, and hers was thunder. That night, people whispered she should run for president, but Oprah didn't need a title to lead. She'd been leading for decades, in homes, in hearts, in healing. She didn't build a brand, she built a bridge between pain and possibility, between silence and speech, between who we were and who we could become. And still, she stayed grounded. She spoke of gratitude, of God, of grace, of the little girl who read books in the corner while the world ignored her, of the woman who now owned the corner and invited the world in, because Oprah never forgot. Not the hunger, not the humiliation, not the hands that hurt her, not the voices that doubted her. She carried it all, not as baggage, but as blueprint. She taught us that success isn't about applause. It's about alignment, with purpose, with truth, with the part of you that refuses to die. And that's why they couldn't silence her, because she wasn't just speaking. She was surviving, she was serving, she was setting fire to every lie that said, "You don't belong." She didn't just leave a mark, she left a map. For every girl who's been told she's too loud, too soft, too broken, too black, too much, Oprah Winfrey became proof. That trauma doesn't define you. That rejection doesn't end you. That silence isn't the end. It's the beginning. She taught us that healing is messy, that truth is uncomfortable, that greatness isn't polished. It's forged in fire, in failure, in the moments no one sees. She didn't build her empire with ease. She built it with endurance, with nights of doubt, with days of criticism, with years of being underestimated. And still, she rose, not to prove them wrong, but to prove herself right. She gave us Super Soul Sundays. She gave us the Oprah Book Club. She gave us interviews that felt like therapy. She gave us permission to feel, to question, to grow, and she gave us herself, unfiltered, unapologetic, unshaken. Because Oprah Winfrey was never just a host. She was a healer, a herald, a high priestess of truth. She stood in rooms where she wasn't wanted. She spoke in spaces where she wasn't welcome. She succeeded in systems that weren't built for her. And she did it without losing her soul. That's the power they couldn't silence. Not the ratings, not the fame, not the fortune, but the soul. The soul that said, I am here, I am whole, I am worthy. And now, she's not just a woman. She's a symbol of what happens when you refuse to be erased, of what happens when you turn pain into power, of what happens when you speak, even when your voice shakes. Because the woman they tried to silence became the voice of a generation. Oprah Winfrey is not just a chapter in history. She is a chorus, a call, a cathedral of voices that refuse to be buried. She showed us that silence is not safety, it is surrender. And surrender was never her story. She carried scars like scripture. She carried rejection like rehearsal. She carried pain like prophecy. And she turned it all into power. Her empire was never built on money. It was built on meaning, on the millions who found themselves in her words, on the broken who found healing in her gaze, on the silenced who found courage in her voice. She became the woman they tried to silence, and the woman who taught the world to speak. Her legacy is not a show. It is a signal, a frequency that still hums in every survivor who says, "Me too," in every dreamer who says, "Why not me?" in every fighter who says, "I will not be erased." Oprah Winfrey is proof that greatness is not about being untouchable. It's about being undeniable. It's about standing in the fire and refusing to burn. It's about turning wounds into wisdom and wisdom into weapon. So when they ask, who is Oprah Winfrey? The answer is simple. She is the woman who turned silence into symphony. She is the woman who turned pain into power. She is the woman who turned destiny into a door and left it open for the rest of us. And that is why, no matter how loud the world tried to shut her down, her voice will always rise. Her truth will always echo. Her name will always stand. Oprah Winfrey, the woman they tried to silence, the woman who became unstoppable,